Alright, so here's a different little kind of video then. My mate, the Damn Beaver, has put together a tier list creator for the Inazuma 11 characters. And I thought, well, I could just fill this out as an image, or I could actually make it a bit of a video, so why not? This character tier list does have characters from the first 6 Inazuma 11 games stroke seasons, including Go Galaxy ones, but I'm not going to be covering those, because if I one day want to cover it on the channel somehow, the localized translation just appears out of thin air, then yeah, I'd want to go over the characters in that instead. And there are no Ares characters because I haven't seen it. So we're going to be sticking to the first 5, and that's going to start off with Aphrodite. He is obviously very, very good. He's a nice final boss for the first Inazuma 11 game, and I like that he keeps coming back. He's got style, solid B tier. However, we jump immediately to S tier within the first 2 characters. I love Alpha. The way he straight talks about everything. I love all the straight talking characters in Inazuma 11, but Alpha to me is particularly funny, and he's got a really nice voice and moves and everything to go with it. He just sets up Chrono Stones, one of my favourite games, in such a good way. Can't be so positive about Wanli. He has one of the weaker chapters of the Inazuma 11 series. I hate that he wears goggles on his chin. It was just a very obvious, how can we do Jack again but different? And then he lacked what made Jack a good character, his non-serious nature, and instead he was incredibly serious, and I don't imagine he'd be as good at football as he is. Sol Daystar, that's a tricky one. If I was going purely on anime for Sol Daystar, where he's just a normal dude with orange hair, then he'd probably be C tier. But purely because of the game adaptation, he gets to jump into B, and that's because the Irish accent is fantastic. Oh, hi, Arian. What's the crack? Now, meanwhile, this one is a little tricky because I do really like Shun, on the principle of how irrelevant he is. Both Hugh and Shun, and just attached to both of them because they don't do anything, and whenever they do finally do something, it suddenly feels all the more important, and I'm not sure where they, am I complimenting them because I like them, or am I not complimenting them because they don't do anything? So I'll just about go for a C. Then we get a couple of weird ones here. I guess I've got to cover Faye's dad, Ashley Rune. What a weird spelling of a name here. Sorry, Benefactor X, and he's responsible for making Fifth Sector happen, so he can't be that high. Badap Sleed as well. He doesn't get to go particularly high. I love Team Ogre Attacks. It's probably my favourite of the games, but not because of Team Ogre themselves, and it's definitely the worst of the movies. Beta, obviously, she's one of the fan favourite characters, and it's I'd get angry comments no matter where I put her, but I do admit I'm a fan, and I'm just trying to think whether it's going to be B or A for Beta. I think I'm going to settle on a B. Now, if we were including Go Galaxy characters in this tier list, then dum-de-dum, but we're not, so off he goes. the team captain of Qatar. I mean, I kind of like his design. I'll spare him of the F tier for that. In fact, I like his match because it's mainly done with regular shots and not special moves. But apart from his kit, what else can I really say? And then you get a bit of a boost, actually, because I do appreciate that while you're a part of a team that has Aphrodite and Torch and Gazelle, it's actually this guy that's the captain, and he gets respect in his own right, and that is worth some credit. Wonderbot. I've not even used the A tier yet, but Wonderbot's going to jump straight up to B because he just has some really funny lines and delivery sometimes, and that is often all you need. Dave Evans is tricky to rank because if you go on Inazuma 11.3, I would say he's an A tier character because he's what the entire series has been building up to, and he's just exactly what you would hope for, like a cheery old man but very, very good at coaching football. Then Chrono Stones happens, and it's weird because I feel like there was a bit of a missed opportunity. He does his role and nothing else. Like, everything is about the Ultimate 11 with him. He never gets the chance to just talk as a character, as part of your journey. So that bumps him down to a B. Giulio Acuto, the fake Jude. What I like the most is how he completely changes appearances once he's done being a Jude clone. And it was a match in the series that didn't need to happen, but I really appreciate that it did. It's part of the entire Italy arc, which is some of the best in the whole of Inazuma 11. I can't be too kind to Giulio himself. He was not really much other than wanting to be like Jude, but I like his arc. Dvalin's another interesting one because if you're going off purely the alien forms, then Dvalin may have been the worst of the three. It was quite good to watch as a goalkeeper. And then Dave Quagmire both helps and hurts him. I like that he's the one guy who didn't get chosen as a candidate for the team, but also he's the one who kind of still looks like an alien when everyone else is kind of normal now, and that's a little bit jarring. So I'm gonna just about go for a D. Finally, we have our first F tier, the captain of the angels from Inazuma 11 3. It's so weird. They're angels, but they're also evil, and I know there's such a thing as evil aliens, but they don't portray themselves as evil. They just act evil while thinking they're in the right, and it's all very weird. Bomb Blaster and the rest of that team definitely got the better end of the deal. The apostles from the sky, not keen. It's been ages since we've had someone from like season 1. I think Aphrodite's the only other one we've had, but Bobby, I really appreciate him as well. He gets to jump up to a nice C tier. He's got a great voice, and really good as a supporting character. He doesn't necessarily need his own plots, but he helps out quite a bit. And his teammate Dylan, he's there to be the very American guy. He's good at what he does. He doesn't have too many cool special moves. I'll settle on a D to keep things even. Edgar Partnus. This is someone I really try to like because, I'm a British fan of Inazuma 11, and this is the captain for the English team. He kind of represents us. He's a bit of a dislikable character, but he's meant to be, so I have to give him some credit. Canon Evans, he does what he does. I appreciate that he brings some extra content to Team Ogre Attacks. He has a nice little bit of involvement. He's got some really good special moves, but obviously everything that he does is hinged to Mark, so he can only go so high. I will go with a D. Now, Mike from Protocol Omega, he loves the boy Alpha and is generally a really funny voice to have throughout the games. Part of Protocol Omega, which I just appreciate in general. We're going to go with an A, why not? Mark Evans is also going to be joining him in A. Like, I didn't really appreciate at first how good of a protagonist Mark Evans was, but, on revisits and especially watching the anime, Inazuma 11 really did need that stubborn guy who just loves football and needs to get things done. Never went quite as well with Arian, but with Mark, I would say he's perfect. And then he became a coach, and that just made him even better. Great protagonist. So Faye, for me, is an interesting one, and I'm going to land straight in a C. And that's because I really, really appreciate that they gave him an entire arc throughout the whole game. They made this brand new character the second most important character in Chrono Stones, and that, to me, is cool. I don't really like his design that much, but he makes up for it with some good moves, like splitting hairs is one of my favourite moves ever, and he's definitely a necessary good character to have. We've got another one in the A tier. It's finally starting to fill out a bit. Again, I've spoken very highly about the Italy arc, and I do love that this guy, sees through to the real personality of Ray Dark. He's perfectly willing to help out with the Japanese team, even when they're rivals. He is a perfect contribution to the Inazuma 11 series, and I wish we got to see him as an adult alongside Kevin in Go 1. Dum 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 dum. Alright, we get Sean, so that's finally someone else to go in the S tier, and out of everyone I can see myself putting in the S tier, Sean's the most in danger because I don't really appreciate his Aiden personality as much as other people do. But when he's talking with his northern voice and just gives me something to read out and makes some northern references in Inazuma 11, yes, I like that very much. Let's go snowboarding. He's actually got a mate to join with him in the S tier as well. Caleb Stonewall, one of the best things to enjoy about Season 3 and its game. Everything he says is brilliant, and he's very, very enjoyable to watch just playing football as well. Like, he actually does the footwork, tricks people up. He's one of the most interesting players to watch from a football perspective, and some of the insults he comes out with are brilliant. Dum-de-dum-dum-dum, why did you come back to the school in Go 1? Like, who would ever hire this guy in a school? Right, Gamma is another one of those who you're not meant to like, and he does a good job of coming across as a dislikable guy, but in that sense I've kind of got to put him high because he's part of Protocol Omega, which I'm always very kind towards, and it's kind of funny how he tries to have a chapter in the game and he just doesn't. Xanax steals his chapter within the first 10 minutes, and then he's left making up for it in Ragnarok. Very, very good. Unlike someone else in Ragnarok, you are an F tier, you get nothing positive said about you. Zulan Rice as well, like, he's a very dislikable villain, which is what he's there for, but, you know, Ray Dark had his redemption stuff. Other villains were kind of funny bad to watch, but this is just a fairly detestable villain, and so he is meant to be there, he does what he does, but I don't have to like him for it. This guy really wants to ruin my voice when I'm making videos. He's going in the F tier. Now, Joseph King, that looks like an Inazuma 11 Ares picture to me. I'm not supposed to be seeing that stuff yet, but it was good that we actually had a notable goalkeeper for once other than Mark and Darren LeChance. He really should have been one of the possible additions to Inazuma National so that there was some suspense on who the goalkeeper would be. You know, they had two goalkeepers there. Obviously, they were both going to make it in. But, you know, Joseph King, he should have been there. I think he even was in the manga. But without that little bit of an extra boost, he's in the C tier. Now, Giris, I do like the overall partnership of Mare and Giris, except for when I have to read it out loud. But in his own right, he doesn't stand out too much. And definitely the attention falls to Mare a lot more so D will do. Why is this guy even on the tier list? You're just a random dude from Royal Academy who, I guess, happened to become part of 5th Sector's post-game team. I do like the design, but he's also got very questionable motives in said post-game. You can go in the E tier. Now then, Axel Blaze, a proper legend, one of the very kind of characters you need to make the series a success. He's a great striker to watch. Can't fault Axel Blaze, and I do love that they randomly chucked in the Doctor arc and even kind of reinvented the character for Go, changed his skin tone to match his dad a bit more, and then just gave him a different voice and everything. He was a different character, but one that you could believe as a natural advancement. I'm going to skip Zine on the bottom of the row because Xavier himself will be coming up later, and Bylong is not just in the S. We put him at the front of the S. Or I was going to try and keep Alpha there for me. It's a shame that his icon has to reflect the kit, which I'm so much less familiar with. But yes, Bylong is one of my two favourite characters in the Inazuma 11 series. He's a funny, straight talker who's just an absolute bit of comedy in the inner link. It's also really fun to watch playing football because he's so good at it, and I love the design. Everyone loves a bit of Hakuryu, and yeah, don't even need to explain myself on this one. Bylong will be occupying one of the 2 top spaces for the rest of the tier list. But he'll get some company with Adikebe, like. He's one of my favourite characters to voice in the entire Let's Play series that I've ever done, and I live in Newcastle, so I'm picking up on the accent all the time, and it's making it even more brilliant. Let's gan down the tune, catch some proper fish, like. Steve is there to do exactly what he's designed for, being the blandest guy in the world, and all that. I've had so many meme comments about him. He's just an easy target for it, and I've appreciated that since day one, even back when I was Let's Playing Inazuma 11 1 and I had like 3 or 4 comments per video and like less than 100 views, I was still getting the Steve memes. Everyone loves him. The only thing I'd need to get him in S tier is actually using him in the game properly for once. Right, so we found a definitive person to put at the very, very back of the F tier. This guy from Almighty Faith exists only to hurt people, and I hate him. I may even warrant making a tier specifically for himself, just to, you know what, you get the boost, now we're even again. Eugene Peabody, I wish I could be a little more generous. Like, he certainly has a big role throughout the series, but he's just overall passable at best. Don't really get the surname connection to the other Peabody, whether that's intentional or not, but there he is. Coach Hillman, another very interesting one, because he's always portrayed as one of the best coaches that Ryman ever had. But he actually did, like, the least out of all of them. He's there for the final third-ish of Inazuma 11 1, and then he's never Ryman's coach again. He's constantly referred to in Inazuma 11 2 and 3, and even has a bit of a rolling go, but he is, he's always built up as someone important, but he never actually does that much. But when he does do something, he definitely lives up to the name. For Stoutberg, I will be chucking in D as well. I like him. I'm always willing him on to do more in the game or in the anime, but he never does. The closest thing he has to an arc is bonding with people on the Brazilian team and learning the combo shoot with Sean. He's by far the least relevant member of Inazuma Japan, and that in some sense is kind of respectable. I like that there's one guy who's just not really important, but I can't boost him up the list just because of that. You get to jump to C tier because it was very fun making a thumbnail for you in the second episode of Inazuma 11 2, where he's just devastated that his school falls apart, but hey, I mean, he got past it, he rebuilt the thing, and he's a great headmaster. Again, I always like to give credit to good goalkeepers, somebody who's not just Mark or Darren or Joseph King. Alessandro was probably the most important character after Dodge on that team, and he was the captain, and I always like to see that where possible. I mean, this is certainly a very good goalkeeper, but I already said I wouldn't be putting him in. So again, these two are inseparable. The only difference is he's got kind of an annoying voice, whereas he's got a French one, which makes it hard for me to make him unique, so that's kind of even between both of them. I'll move Bobby to the front just for clarification, but yeah, that's where they go. Speaking of moving Bobby, we get to move Eric straight into the B tier. He's very much appreciated. He's kind of a minor character in the first two seasons, but you get just enough of him to appreciate him, and then he comes along with season 3 and jumps up massively in importance. So underneath the F tier, we're going to make an Almighty Faith tier, because they all belong in here. There is nothing worse than Almighty Faith in this series. Ugh. Joan of Arc is the first time where I have to judge an actual historical figure, and it's a little bit tricky to do. Like, the design's super interpretive. I doubt Joan of Arc looked anything like that, or indeed acted much like that, but man, when she actually does overcome her problems and starts waving the flag in the anime, oh, I felt the lump in my throat, man. It really got me. And so it can't be any lower than a B. Jack Wallside. He's wanly but good. I love the jokes about going to the loo and the just general involvement throughout the early series. Can't say much of a bad thing about him. Jim as well, he's certainly a nice supporting character to have in Season 1. He doesn't do enough to jump any higher, but he's good. Now, Lucian Dark I don't really get, because he's there to be related to Ray Dark and reference that character, which they then do for an entire season anyway, so it wasn't really necessary. And he doesn't even get to meet Ray Dark. It's all a bit odd, and then for most of the game or most of the season, he's a bit crap. He's just about good enough to get one goal and help win the match, and then all of a sudden, in the final match, he's making like massive black hole moves that are like some of the most powerful we've ever seen, and then he gets sidelined again and never does out. Aitor as well, I'm really split, because I enjoy him a lot in Chrono Stones, where he's just making gags off to the side and just being a good supporting or unsupporting character, if you will. But I think he does go a bit too far in Go 1. It's kind of weird that everyone forgives him so easily. And the fact that he never gets a move other than Hunter's Net in the anime is missed potential. So Ray Dark, I can't really factor in Galaxy too much as a reasoning. Obviously, we know that he's there. But I kind of have to judge him as an overall package, and he's just there to be the villain, to end all villains for most of Go, for the 2 seasons, and then Inazuma 11 no matter how out of nowhere it seems, they just make an arc that totally makes me like Ray Dark somehow, and then he gets involved again, so, the Ray Dark full package, he's good enough for a B. Nathan Swift, though, I want to specifically put quite far up the B tier, because he's just the supporting character to Mark Evans. He's been his best mate since the beginning, and then he gets to be important in his own right. You can't go wrong with a bit of Nathan Swift. However, you can go wrong with the guy who tainted him. The only good thing I can say about him is that I didn't see the plot twist coming. That's it. And then I like the design, and he's probably got the best Inazuma 11 movie, but at the end of the day, he's just a bad guy that abuses kids. I can't put him too high because of that. Now, Jude Sharp is not even in the picture here, but if he goes in C tier, then that's going to push it on to a second line, which is inevitable. I am going to put him kind of in the middle of C tier, because I love seeing his tactics come to light, and I also really like seeing him as a bad guy, or indeed coming to terms with his relationship with Ray Dark. But when he's just being an all-out good guy or a good coach, sometimes it can be a little jarring, and I wish he'd take the goggles off in the Go series. Goldie Lemon, we finally get to revisit the S tier again. One of the best voices, one of the most popular characters, some of the best moves. Goldie is a near perfect character. King Arthur, you can have a little bit of credit, no higher than D, because he's not important for more than 3 episodes stroke 1 chapter, but I do appreciate that he was an important person to mix and match with that we all recognised after a bit of a hiatus from important historical figures that we're all familiar with, shall we say. Sylvia. Now, I'm going to put her just about sticking in the B tier again. We'll put her quite high. Not my favourite manager, but there are no managers that I don't like. They're all great. Coach Luna as well, she's generally been quite unpopular, and I never really got that, because, she's a bit harsh at first, but she is a good coach. She brings the team on to do what needs to be done, and I can't really say much wrong, but it's the fact that you almost feel weird for saying that you like the character that restricts her to the C tier. You don't matter. You're a villain that's actually going to go a little bit higher for once, because you at least see that you were wrong to do what you did and raised some good kids. Now, Gabby, I think you have to have Gabby and Nathan side by side, because they're both there to do the exact same thing in their respective arcs, and I wouldn't say I prefer one over the other necessarily. Nathan has more progress throughout the anime just by having more episodes, while Gabby gets the nice fighting spirit and the unique chapter with Joe. You, meanwhile, are part of Almighty Faith, and to be fair, this guy wasn't as bad, because he at least wanted to play football fairly. It was the other seeds who were dragging the match down, so alright, you can go in F, I suppose.
Now this guy has a Liverpudlian accent, and that's all I really need to put him in C tier.
Oh dear, it sounded like I was dying there. Anyway, Xavier. He is either the bottom of S or the top of A, and I think for the sake of balance we're going to go with top of A, because certainly he was like S tier for the original series, but Chrono Stones introduces a few extra S tiers, as you can see, so I'll go for the ringleader of A for Xavier, one of the best strikers to watch, and I just loved seeing him as a good guy throughout Season 3, and even as a bad guy in Season 2. Scott Banyan, he's a little bit underrated, actually. You don't really cheer for him to do well in football, because he's not the nicest guy, especially, but some of the banter that he comes out with in the games, especially, more so than the anime, is actually really funny, and for that I need to at least give him a C. Now, this guy makes me laugh. I'm jumping him up to C purely because he's the member of Ryman that everyone forgets, along with the other one when he comes up in the tier list. Like, I think his name was Lars, wasn't it? If you have to think about it for a sec, then that's how forgettable this member of actual Ryman Football Club was. And that somehow is a good thing. Cam Camellia Travis, one of my favourite managers ever, but again, I like all the managers. Cam does get to jump up to second in the A tier. She's got one of the best narratives going on in that. I've even ended up nicknaming a friend in real life Cam purely because of this character. So every time I call the real life person Cam, it only makes the Inazuma 11 character Cam Cam even better. Her dad, however, goes to second place on the tier list. He even jumps above Alpha. He's the best coach in any Inazuma 11 team ever. Coach Travis makes the games a delight. He makes the anime a delight. He's not even got much of a big role in Go, but I appreciate that he's just still there after all this time. It makes me want games that took place in between Inazuma 11 3 and Go, just to have more of Coach Travis as the coach of Ryman. He's brilliant. Kaiser now, no matter what the comments say, he's going into the E tier because, I mean, he's there, he's on the team, he's at least got some moments, but I just don't like him. He's a bit of a dick. Todd Ironside I'm going to put in the top of D tier because I do enjoy seeing him talk, seeing him ish play football, but he's awful to use in the games because he's a defender who doesn't get any defensive moves. And again, because he's such a unique design, there's absolutely no way they could have made him work in Go as an adult. So he's kind of a gimmick, if you will, and he could only go so far as a result. Well, alright, Lars can join him. Now you, I appreciate. I'm going to go with a fairly high D tier because he's a good fake out. He looks like a genuine modern day Aphrodite that you could believe as the final boss, and then it turns out he isn't. But it's nice to think about it more in detail as well. You know, he's Axel Blaze's protege. It's not touched on much, but he is, so I want to give him the credit for that. Now then, Rusty. I love the way he talks, and that's about it, really. He's the definition of an expendable member of Ryman who was totally pushed to the side in Chrono Stones and hardly mattered, and that's why I went through most of my first playthroughs not giving a damn about him because he didn't matter. But then on the revisits, I was actively looking for this guy who I'd kind of built up as the least important Inazuma 11 character, and sure enough, he was more important than Lars as a Ryman player, and I grew to like him, especially because of the voice. Minion gets to go a little bit higher than Zulin. He comes around on his actions, and I like that he's a persistent role throughout the series, but he's still a bad guy, and it's a bit weird that he plays football so well. Another really interesting supporting character here. This guy does nothing important other than eat ice cream, but again, he's just linked to my favourite arc in the original run of Inazuma 11, and he's just a nice design, and more importantly, it's good that Nakata has a friend, especially one who doesn't necessarily play football. He's never seen playing football apart from like a gentle header with the young kid who, you know, anyone could do that. In my mind, this guy doesn't play football at all, and he's just a friend of Nakata who happens to have gotten roped into the story. And you know what? I'm even actually going to put him into B after that rant. I've talked myself into liking him even more. Now then, the captain of Brazil. He's a little difficult to watch in both the anime and the game because his arc is filled with such sorrow and you really want him to get through it, but you just get that glimmer of what he's like as a footballer when he's able to play without worry, and that is a really enthusiastic character that you like to see, and he played an important role in the game and I respect that. Right, Houdini, I'm just going to pretend you're from Almighty Faith because you were still a seed, and I hate that his name is just outright Houdini. That's not even a pun, that's just a reference like Davy Jones, and he's part of the One Lee chapter, which I don't really like. Oof. Now, Mark actually gets an unusual boost to C, because I bet you had to do a bit of a double take when I said Mark, and I didn't drag Mark Evans. I love that the Inazuma 11 devs are kind of respectful of the fact, you know, we can't have everyone have unique names. Sometimes people just do have the same name. They did that a couple times with David, and then here they told that the main character of the game was called Mark, but this guy's called Mark as well, and yeah, I get it. He's called Mark even in Japan, whereas our main guy Mark over here is Endo. It's also good that he's the captain because he's like the fourth most important member on his team as far as story goes, but he's still is the captain, and you don't expect that, but it's cool. Queen of Dragons, you exist for about 10 minutes. You give a nice little speech out of Goldie, so that's good, I guess. Arian Sherwin, I'm going to put at the top of the D tier. He's definitely an attempt to do Mark Evans again, and I like some of his moves, and he is kind of that essential protagonist that you kind of need in the game, but never really kicked off in the same way as Mark. Just a bit less likable, and his dub voice is a bit challenging to listen to, unless it's the very second episode of Chrono Stones where he's arguing with Alpha on the beach. Something like, I love football, and all of that kind of stuff. Sometimes the cheesiness pays off. Max, a good little design, but I'm actually going to go with a fairly low ranking here because it kind of annoys me that he was considered a candidate for Inazuma National when he didn't deserve it at all. He's not even like the best member of Ryman who gets sidelined from the second season onwards. Like he's probably worse than Steve. I don't get why he was a candidate, and that kind of put me off him somewhat. Now then, what to do with both Willy and Isaac? First I need to know which is which. That one's Willy, and it's good that he has a role in Season 3 without having to actually be a player or indeed anyone important. He's just there for the ride, and that's appreciated. Isaac, meanwhile, he actually is good. That's odd, and he's also got my name, so forever the Isaac of Inazuma 11 is this guy, and I don't know how to feel about that one, Chief. So we finally get to Mare, and I said that I was going to put her at least a tier above Giris, so I've got to find where I put Giris first. He's there. They actually get to be fairly close by for now. Because, No Future is one of my favourite moves in the entire Inazuma 11 series, and that alone is good enough of a reason for me. And now, finally, the other contender with Bylong. I have these in no particular order. I have a favourite character from the original series, and I have a favourite character from Go. I can't comment on Jordan in Ares again because I've not seen it, but Jordan was my original favourite Inazuma 11 character. Like, it was Sean when I played the second game, and then this guy took it and ran with it ever since. I adore everything Jordan does, and it is such a shame that you don't get to take him through the entire game. I was mortified when he got kicked off the team in Inazuma 11 3 because he was already my favourite character before that even happened. I didn't just like him because he was obscure, the guy who got kicked off the team, you know. As soon as I saw that Janus from the previous game came back as a good guy, looked real different and had that same bit of personality but with the niceness and used the same special moves but then made them better, I am so attached to Jordan. I couldn't even explain why at this point, but from the moment I met that character I knew he was going to be my favourite, and he still is now. You are a captain of Royal Academy, but modern Royal Academy kind of falls flat on its face compared to the original one anyway. Can't really give you much credit at all. Dodge, the guy with an American accent who abandons us, and then you beat him in football, you ask him to rejoin the team, and he says no. I really like that because, you know, moving schools is a difficult process. You can't just hop back again. He made his choice and he stuck with it, and it's better that way instead of him coming back to Ryman. So that alone gets him to be on the higher end of D tier. So this is the actual Lars. I don't even know what he's called, but I guess you're Lars and you're the one who got to be in the thumbnail on top of Solid Snake, so you get to go a little higher. His irrelevance is amusing, and I guess Thor can go with you two as well for the same reason. You are Almighty Faith. Marvin Murdoch. I expect I'm going to have to find all three of these and put them together, but I love all of them. The way they talk is hilarious, and the fact that one of them ended up being a candidate for Inazuma National is even funnier. Like, the way they talk in the dub as well of Season 1. It's one of the best things about the dub, which is otherwise pretty widely scathed. I love the dub of the game. The dub of the anime, yeah, I won't really defend that one. I'll still listen to that over the subs when I've got the choice, but the Murdochs had some of the best dub voices in the anime, period. Torch, I played Firestorm a lot more than I played Blizzard, and as a result I'm really attached to Torch, especially Atomic Flare, one of my favourite moves, so you get the boost. Nakata, I've already spoken at great length how I love the Italy arc, and this guy is an important member of it. He's gonna fall into the B tier instead of the A tier, just because, I mean, you could have turned up for your team a lot sooner, couldn't you? You played half a match in the whole of the FFI, but he is Such a good part of the arc. Hey, you know what? This guy was in C tier at one point. Go rejoin your mate. Davy Jones is gonna go into the F tier. It's so weird. He's a seed, but they try to give him a sad backstory and make you feel sorry for him. And it's like, why? Why is this guy called Davy Jones, who's a pirate, the final team to get you into the Nationals? It absolutely should have been Dodge's team as the final of the regionals, and then he should have been on the first team of the Nationals. That was in totally the wrong order. Now, the captain of Big Wives is not my favourite character to get an Australian accent, because then we get Gammon Checker, who is unfortunately probably not on the tier list, but I'm going to give him some credit anyway, and I don't know why I've completely buggered the Australian accent. Maybe it's because it's nearly midnight and I'm trying to be a bit quieter, but this guy is not a seed, but he's still on Modern Royal Academy, which didn't really hit it for me. You can go behind those two, but yeah, just not big on Modern Royal. Malcolm Knight, you're here on a pure technicality. You are technically part of the final boss of Inazuma 11 too, so I guess you're here, but I have no strong feelings one way or the other. Now we get to Roma, who's a little bit of a weird one because I enjoy him when the story is about him. He's great in Ryoma's chapter and in his debut in Go 1, but when he's not the focus of a chapter and he's shoved off to the side, suddenly I just don't want to use him in matches because I've got so many better people that I can use on Strike Force, and I'm not too keen on his moves, even though I really like his personality and his accent, so he's a very solid middle-of-the-road guy for me. Meanwhile, contrastingly, JP is probably the only member of Ryman to be a contender for F along with Wan Li. I'm going to shove both of these two together. These are the only members of Ryman that I've ever actively not liked. And I don't think I need to explain myself on JP because he's widely unpopular. Nobody really likes JP, and it's not hard to see why. Weeb gets there. Nobunaga, now you are part of one of the best chapters. I am going to go for a bottom of C. He seems to me to be a very faithful adaptation of Nobunaga and little more than that, but he gets involved with Ricardo and does exactly what he needs to do, and he's a very, very good power to use as the first member of the Ultimate 11. Now, the Prime Minister, would you believe I've actually made an entire sub-video about him? Back when I used to do collab countdowns on a channel called Challengers Approaching, we did, as a Christmas special, the top 10 politicians in gaming. And I covered this guy, and I appreciate him because he's not just a good president in Inazuma 11, he's also in Little Battler's Experience. And I don't want to go into too much detail, just in case I ever work with that game on this channel, but he's even better in LBX than he is in this game somehow. Katsu goes in the S tier. Oh my days, her accent, her chapter, her everything. I wanted to cry when we had to leave her behind in that chapter. I am way attached to Katsu. It's kind of silly how much I like this character, but she is in my top 5. Okita Soji, I'm actually not going to be too generous on him, and I was really, really surprised when I read all my YouTube comments saying how much they like the guy, because the way I see it, he's a guy fighting for the bad side, which is historically accurate, then he has to have a kind of traditional I was wrong for the sake of Inazuma 11, which I doubt he would have had in reality. And his design is so freestyle. Like, there's no way the guy looked like that. And I get that they had the freedom to pick whatever design they want because he's never been historically drawn. But the fact that this guy doesn't even have a canon appearance makes me kind of wonder why they made him a member of the Ultimate 11 in the first place. Now then, we have our first character from LBX to rank. And I'm just going to dump him here out of not knowing because I love Little Battler's Experience, but they only localized the first game, and this guy was not in the first game, and so I cannot judge him at all. He has a fleeting appearance in Inazuma 11 via the movie, but I can't really remember him in his own right. Cadence Soundtown, he genuinely is going towards the top of B tier. He's the one that makes Okinawa's team actually a threat, and he's one of the best things that the anime ever does. Taking a guy who's just one of the players in the game actually makes him really important and gives him his own footballing style. And to me, he impressed me so much with the way he plays football in the anime. He almost made me wish he was an Inazuma National candidate. I say almost. I did wish he was a candidate so he could speak in some more rhymes. Nelly. Nelly gets to go just about in the A tier towards the end of it, but oh, she has such development over the 3 seasons, and then gets to appear in Go as well as potentially Mark's wife. You're not meant to like her at the start, but when you do, oh, you realise you've really come to like that character. Her dad, meanwhile, is there to do what he does. Wow, great. Why have I even put him yeah. What I can put really high up is RX. Another one of those straight talkers. He doesn't actually have enough personality to make it work. He is a robot. He looks really basic. But one of my favourite moments in the anime is when you're just in the match against Faye's team, Garl. You're meant to forget he exists while all the head crushing's going on, and then all of a sudden you get this huge panning shot straight into RX's face, as if to say, you forgot about me, didn't you? And then he goes on a solo rampage against the team and nearly scores. It's one of the best moments in the whole series. Now, another important goalkeeper. I want to put Rococo. I've briefly forgotten his dub name all of a sudden. That's a bit embarrassing. But I want to put him high because he's a very important goalkeeper and the perfect final boss. But it annoys me that they make him turn into a striker partway through the match. I don't think that was necessary. The rest of his team was plenty good enough without that, and he didn't need to be so multi-talented. Yeah, you occasionally see Mark get a goal, but usually in a combo shoot, he's not an exceptional forward on his own right, so why should this guy be? You know exactly what's happening here. She's part of the Inazuma, part of the Italy arc, but of the 3, she's definitely my favourite because I never ever saw it coming with the whole Ray Dark thing, and she's pretty much a perfect design as well. I love the way they made Lucia look. She doesn't appear enough for me to put her in A tier, but definitely my top of B. Liu Bei, the way you laugh, it's that damn laugh he gets me every time. It's really enjoyable to watch, and the stubborn nature of his character goes a long way to helping him out. I'm going to put him towards the top of the C tier, with only a bit of downside is that he's there to help JP and not anyone that we actually like. I can't believe I've done this. I did that entire ramble about Destra thinking he was the angel because he's in the orange kit that they both wear, completely not noticing. I was talking about the wrong guy. It's this guy who's crap. In fact, I'm even going to put him specifically at the bottom of the F tier. Destra, he's evil for a reason. He's the devil. That makes sense. So he gets to go a little bit higher into the D tier because I like his special move and he's become a fixture of my YouTube comments section. And there's no doubt a load of him in there right now for slandering the boy. You are part of Inazuma 11 GO's very slow start, and that makes the season quite challenging to watch, and so I have to be critical there. Schema Guile, I really want to praise him. He is such an interesting coach to watch. The fact that he picks up on Ricardo of all people and kind of makes him a player of his own making, and he also made RX and Mecha Mark. Everything that this guy does I end up liking, and even his design and his accent is good, so he gets to go really high. Ryoma Sakamoto, I like what he stands for, and the general story as a whole works with him. I don't really get why they decided to make him fat, and it's weird that he's just playing football with us the entire time, but also doesn't do much when he's playing and never required to do anything with him in the game, while in the anime he's only ever got the ball if it's to talk to this guy, and his chapter is just too short in general, so that impacts him. David Samford, I appreciate the guy for being quite basic. He joins Inazuma National halfway through the game because he's good. That's the only reason. His only story involvement is, well, it's part of the Italy arc, so again he gets a boost from that, but he's just there as a good opponent in Royal Academy or a good player in Inazuma National, and he does both very well. Sam, this is a character I've grown to appreciate way more than I ever expected. I used to take the mickey out of him when I was playing through Go 1 and Chrono Stones because he was so unimportant. Like, it was obvious before it even happened that JP was just going to overtake him. And as a goalkeeper, he's got no distinction in his appearance, no unique personality apart from he likes cooking and he's quite responsible. He's also not that great as a goalkeeper because he never gets a fighting spirit. But then when he gets God Hand X, that's not capable hands, that's it, in Chrono Stones, and actually stops a really important shot, I came to respect that. And then looking back through the Let's Plays, it was fun to just voice him as a normal guy, and he's the first to help get Go 1 out of its slow start, and I don't know, I just completely changed on him. I suddenly really, really like him. A lot more than JP. I think you're part of the LBX chapter. I haven't recorded that yet at the time of doing the tier list, so you go there? Now then, Simeon AP is really tricky to rank because what he does in the games is totally indefensible. He's a proper villain. But I love the way he talks, and he's got such grace and style, and he sets up Ragnarok. That's certainly something good. I don't like what happens to him in the late stages of his match, but definitely one of my favourite villains, up there with Radar, who I only really like when he's starting to come around as a good guy anyway. So, I'll put them back to back. You, meanwhile, are one of the absolute worst villains. Wow, you had to set up this whole organisation because you stole a bit of bread or a football. Wow, who cares? All I like is his accent and kind of his design. He's not really likeable. But what's even worse is his son, who actually goes into the tier below amazingly, because the only good thing is that he's a strong goalkeeper captain. He didn't need to exist. Like, the dad did the role enough. He didn't also need to exist on the pitch as a smaller, 14-year-old. Then at least this guy talks about his actions. All he does is stick up for his dad, and it's painful to watch, and he's my least favourite final boss. Jade, entirely because of the Liverpudlian accent, you get to be in the A tier. If you did not have the Liverpudlian accent, then you would be in the B tier, but because you have a fantastic voice, I love giving it a go. I cannot do accents tonight. I think my throat's a bit buggered, so I'm not even going to try. But I had to go out of my way to learn how to do a Liverpudlian female accent. But it was worth it to voice that character as best I could. Ricardo, you are great. I have to be very generous to Ricardo. He's great watching him be a tactician, be a footballer. Yeah, sometimes he can get a bit emotional and sad, but I mean, he should be doing if he has to leave the one true love Katsu in the past. Oh dear, oh dear. And he's got the same voice as Hero from Dragon Quest XI and Smash Brothers, and that to me is too funny. I think you're part of Alpine. Again, modern Alpine worked quite well. I love the striker, who we'll get to, but the other guys not so much. Timmy, yeah, I appreciate that you're there. You get to be lumped in with Maxwell as one of the Season 1 guys who's not especially good. Sam, I'm going to give a little bit more credit to. I like the design and the personality just that little bit more. Sugar Liang, she made me re-record her debut episode. Not even her debut episode, but the one where they just mention her. I had to re-record so many times because I kept spoiling her gender, of all things, while otherwise just buggering up the episode for different reasons. She's represented very well, and it's nice to see her. Tezcat, you're going to be jumping very high indeed. You don't get to be in the same tier as Bylong, I'm afraid, but you're a completely different character that I respect watching in your own right, and I love the voice as well. We'll put Axel a bit higher. Kevin Dragonfly, it is great that he gets to be the first goal scorer in the Nationals of Season 3. That's something that always stuck with me. And then he's a great guy in Go as well. And the rivalry with Sean I appreciate. Just a shame he has to replace Jordan, huh? Celia, again, the managers, they all go together extremely well, and she serves a good role in Go 1 as a normal teacher woman who's just helping the game progress. However, the one manager that I'm really not keen on is Sky, and she is just about going to go in E tier. Don't know why I'm going out of my way to keep Ashley at the front, but yeah, the design didn't hit with me at all like the previous managers did, and she's just like a carbon copy of Sylvia to me without anything that makes her unique. And Sky is actually one of my favourite names ever for a girl, and they spelled it wrong, and that makes me even more sad. What am I supposed to do with you? There. Why not? Alright, agenda time. Sue Hartland is going in the C tier, and that alone will annoy a lot of people, but I think she's very underrated. She's one of the most hated characters in the series, and my only real opinion is that I don't hate her, and occasionally like the way she speaks in the dubbed games. Like, that's it. She's only a C tier. I don't love her, but she's not nearly as bad as people let on. Finally, it's been ages since we put Torch on the list. You get to be a fair bit lower, but still fairly high. You get to be with your new captain. I feel like there's a bit of a running trend with the F tier, in that it's just characters exclusive to one team in certain episodes of Go. This guy is a bit of an arsehole. Don't like him. His brother's a lot more likable, but also you get a bit fed up of him because it's like the whole match is just building up to the point where he gets on the pitch and then he doesn't really help as much as he's let on as he should. So they both get to stay in just about the same place. Taro, you are Katsu's sister, and for that reason alone you get to jump into the C tier. Just pure relation to Katsu and nothing else to help you climb any higher. Paul Peabody, it's kind of funny that he's a recurring character and he's always fun to recruit, but he is not a character. He's not part of the story. Archer Hawkins, I'm going to be moving to the very upper echelons of the A tier. He's fantastic to watch. It's a shame he only ever gets one move, but at least Vacuum Cut is a really, really cool one. The only sad thing for him is that he doesn't pursue football in his later life. He just runs the noodle shop, and I mean, yeah, that's a nice connection to Coach Hillman, but you could be earning a lot more money playing football. Pa, Saw's dad, you know what? You can jump all the way to D tier because the screams he makes in the game as its own line of dialogue, that alone makes me laugh. Saw himself, meanwhile, well, what did you expect? Torres, this is another character who, may I throw out the word underrated, potentially? I'm going to just about go for a B tier, which might surprise a lot of people, but there are so few important defenders in the Inazuma 11 series, and that's what this guy does very well. And he's a perfect cocky captain. Why would he acknowledge Mark Evans straight away? And he also beats Ryman. He beats Inazuma National, and they never get their revenge. So he must be the best defender ever, right? I don't know why characters from Farm are on this tier list. You really don't matter. Chairman Argos, well, it's not the best picture of him, and he doesn't get to be as high as Schema Guile, but I am at least going to put him... I'm going to go with one tier below. He's not quite as good as his mate Schema Guile, but I still love the accent and the entirety of Eldorado. Hurley Kane, what's up, dude? We've got another addition to the A tier, which is getting just that bit bigger. I remember when this was really even to start off with, but finally S tier is looking that bit more elusive. Victor Blade is such a challenging one to rank properly. I'm going to go with the bottom of B tier. He's almost a C tier, with the main reason being that his design irks me. He's meant to be a good guy. He's a bad guy for like 4 chapters of Inazuma 11-1, and then he kind of has his character arc and becomes good from there on out. And you're stuck with him just looking like the most evil design ever for the rest of the series. It'd be another one of those characters that you can't really age if there was an Inazuma 11 GO GO another 10 years later. But I mean, that's a one small thing that's bad, along with, in comparison to a lot of good. Bellatrix, she's another really, really popular character, and kind of rightfully so. I'm going to go with the C tier, though, which is a little bit lower than some would give. Austin Hobbs, I'm going to go with a C tier again. He gets a lot of stuff to do in Season 3 in the anime, and it's kind of surprising how much he actually achieves without necessarily becoming anyone's favourite along the way, but he's perfectly serviceable and I like him enough. You are not great, are you? He's from Thunder Flash instead of Wildfire, so that alone gets him a tier above the other one. Rosy Red, if I was rating this purely on Go 1, then she would be straight in the F tier. But Chrono Stones does so much to save her and make her a lot more likeable that she jumps into the C tier. Now, Vanyamaro, this is an LBX character I actually can rate, and this is totally cheating, but I'm going to put him in the A tier. What can I judge him on from an Inazuma 11 perspective? Not much. But can I judge him from his own games? Sure, he's the protagonist of a game I really like, so he gets to be in the A tier. Shame that didn't work for Ari and Sherwin, eh? Shadow, you're just kind of there. It's somewhat amusing how edgelordy he is, but yeah, he's high in the E tier. We're really getting to the closing stages now, and Njord is another one of these who could have been an S tier if he just got to do a little bit more. I love his design. I love his accent. I love his team. I love that he's connected to Sean. But he spends so long slagging him off and then he doesn't get to do anything in other chapters. But at least he gets to be in the crossover movie. You, meanwhile, are just a normal part of Alpine. So there you go. Talisman. He got to go in the F tier because the match against Occult in Inazuma 11-1 was so hard for newcomers that I nearly quit the series altogether, and it could have been entirely this guy's fault that I never produced these videos for you in the first place, so he's got to be low. Vladimir Blade, he's really, really admirable. I mean, the sacrifices he was willing to make, oh my days, but yeah, his role in Chrono Stones helps him out so much. If it was just Go 1, then he couldn't be too high, but Chrono Stones sends him up a million miles. Don't know how you're the second to last character that we get to do, but Tori for me gets to be towards the very back end of the A tier. I know I've not really been ordering these tiers anyway, but Tori would be towards the back of it, but I appreciate her for what she does. She's a nice, charming character who you always like to see more of. And I'm so pleased that we get to end the video with the final S tier character. It's Zanuck. Now, he definitely is at the bottom of S tier. He's individually worse than all of these characters for me, but I love him just about enough to make it to the S tier. He's just so amusing, and he's another one of those Calebs where I actually love watching him play football because he's so tricky about it, and I Am the Almighty is one of the best move names ever. And apparently there is somebody that I forgot, so we don't get to end on a high note. Instead, we get to end on Big, who genuinely I'm actually going to chuck quite high because it makes me really sad when his mum dies. And that is it. So we have finished the tier list with every single character apart from the Go guys, the Go Galaxy. We have now finished the tier list, and this is what it looks like. And I mean, it's annoying that right, who can we upgrade from B and put them in A? Of course, it's going to be Lucia, isn't it? I mean, I've spent long enough justifying it. Soul, you can also move to the front of B tier just to make sure. And there we go. So if you want to do the tier list that was made by the Damn Beaver, the link will be in the description, and let me know what you disagree with and what you especially do agree with in my tier list in the comments below. Have fun!